Hi, everybody. Clarke from Thrive Physical Therapy and Wellness in Richmond, Virginia, and this is Strive to Thrive, your weekly podcast designed to help improve your health, increase your level of success, and help you thrive in life.
My name is Cody Shawhouse. I'm a physical therapist here at Thrive Physical Therapy, and today we're going to be talking about how to set yourself on the right path to a full recovery and getting back into what you used to love to do by setting a goal or setting an event to help you kind of finalize that process. And I think as a way for us to convey that to you guys, we're just going to have a small discussion about some of our past experiences, how we've set goals for ourselves to get back from our past injuries, and then kind of a way that you can do that successfully and how important that is. And so I'm just going to speak on my behalf a little bit. So I've experienced a couple injuries in the past, but the one that really kind of comes to mind first would be a meniscal tear that I've experienced when I was in college. So something that basically I really wanted to get back to full recovery after doing. It impacted me for about 8 to 12 weeks of rehab. So I kind of self-rehab throughout physical therapy school. And then over time, I got to a point to where I really wanted to resume basketball. And that was my big goal, right? And I knew that I wanted to play basketball. After meniscal tear, a lot of physicians or even physical therapists might tell you basketball is something that you really want to wait a while on, which is good advice. But that was my end goal. I knew I wanted to do that. So I set my sights on the intramural collegiate tournament that we had at Ohio University by the end of the year. And that's something I really wanted to be able to play in.
So how far out was that?
So it was about 3.5 months. So it was a relatively aggressive protocol for me to get back to that, right? The good news was, I was non-operative. I went through rehab only, and by about 6 to 8 weeks in, I could jog. I could start doing some stuff with it, with minor pain, minor inconvenience. But then that was my goal, right? And the good thing about that goal, even though it was lofty, and I knew it was going to be kind of tough to make that happen within a reasonable amount of time, it really put my mind onto how I was going to accomplish it. And it became less about rehabbing my knee, and became more about how do I get back to that level of activity that I really want to accomplish. And it made the whole thing much more bearable. I know that it's hard to constantly focus on the pain or focus on the structure that's involved. And if you're thinking about recovery all the time, it gets wearing because you feel like you're trying to go back to somewhere. But when you have this expectation or this goal in your mind, it becomes much more concrete. And it also gives you this, this feeling that I'm trying to accomplish this thing I love to do, not accomplish, a return to normal necessarily.
And how did you feel about it? How often did you play basketball? Like, how much was it part of your lifestyle before?
I played 3 days a week. It was huge. I really heard it during soccer, which tells me that both of my meniscal tears have been in soccer, and I no longer play soccer. It's just more of like just refuse to do it at this point. Not that it's bad; it's just personal. But yeah, so basketball is huge. That's how I got involved with all my friends. That's how I got my relationship. That's how basketball shaped a huge part of who I am.
Yeah. Were you conscious of that prior to the injury happening, or
I loved it. I played it because it was fun. I played it because it was good exercise, and just because it was my way of kind of stress release. Being in the PT program, it made me. It was a good time to kind of sweat it out, not think, do something that wasn't involved in education for a bit.
Yeah.
And so to me, after I had the injury, it was depressing to kind of lose it, because my friends all kept playing and all my groups still kept doing the same stuff. But that made me more and more focused on the fact that I really wanted, it was my last year of PT school. So it was my last year to compete at an intramural level, which for me was kind of fun and a big deal. So I really wanted to get back to that and join the team for it.
Did you cognitively have a concept of, did you realize how much it mattered to you? Like, were you worried about losing it at that point? Like, was that something that was a cognitive process in your brain, or was it just like, oh, wow, I haven't been able to do this and I'm upset about it?
Well, I was honestly pretty confident in the fact that I could get back to it. I really did. So this is my third meniscal tear at this point. So experience has told me that I can return to sport after having a knee injury. I can do it. I've had success in the past. And so I knew this process. I had people, being in the PT program, I had people around me who were I was kind of a case study for our class, right? So it was pretty easy to have a lot of advice as we went through things. But really it was more just, I knew that if I did the right process, took the right steps, that I could accomplish it. And to be comfortable enough. I never expected for pure perfection by my first accomplishment. Like I knew if I got to my goal, I probably wouldn't be pain free. I knew I probably wouldn't be 100% functional, 100% strong, 100% fast. But I knew I could compete. I could enjoy the process because it meant that much to me.
So for everybody who's watching, maybe just say like a couple things that you wanted to make sure that you kind of addressed it as a therapist, right?
Yeah.
A perspective that's maybe a little different. So
right.
You needed to do before you.
Yeah. So there's a couple. There's some functional tests I had to be able to kind of pass in order to be confident that I can return without another risk of re-injury. Mm-hmm. We use those in PT. It's a single leg hop test. It's called a LEFS. There's some other dynamic tests that we use, but the whole point is I had to pass a couple of tests to make sure that my knee was stable enough that I wasn't going to have an ACL injury or MCL injury or some kind of other, ligamentous or knee problem going forward. And so once I passed those tests, I knew that I could I felt confident I could perform without causing further harm. Right? Even though I will say that, and even to this day, I still have some discomfort after playing basketball. I still play, by the way. Not as often, but once a week now at this point, just because of time constraints. But I will say that if you have an injury like this, one thing I'd like to address for people is that, especially if you have a meniscal or an intra-articular problem where the cushion between your joints has been impacted, you have to realize that you may deal with some discomfort as an adjunct to that. You can rehab until the cows come home, right? You can do everything right. But if you damage some intra-articular tissue, there may be some discomfort with certain activities, right? Especially repetitive tasks like running, jumping, squatting, biking. But I think I caution people to know that, even though there may be some more discomfort, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're causing more injury or harm. It may just be part of it's kind of new structure for what you're dealing with. And it's kind of a hard-nosed way to say, yeah, you've recovered from this from a functional standpoint, but the architecture may never be exactly the same. So the discomfort you maybe feel, which I feel after basketball for a couple of days, which is usually soreness. We never want sharp pain. We never want searing pain. I think that's going to increase, over the course of the day and things like that. But if you experience that can be normal, and that might just be something you have to set in stone and prepare for.
And there's a sensitivity that you have to be willing to work through, right? And sometimes having a goal like that, knowing that that this is just part of the process, not overly unusual. If things are working fairly well, then things come out pretty well. And how just so that the people watching, how do you know when maybe it's above and beyond just like normal sensitivity? Yeah,
so the things I usually tell people is your body uses sharp pain as a way to correlate injury and harm typically, right? So achiness, soreness, and dull pain. We don't want people to experience those things, obviously, but after an injury, especially post-rehab for a while, you may experience that for a while because that could just be your nervous sensitivity being heightened to certain pressures, certain impact. The way I tell people a lot of times, it's like posture. You sit in a chair for 20 minutes, it's going to hurt after a while. Does that mean you've done some significant damage during sitting in a chair? Most likely not. Right? It'd take a lot more force than that to really hurt tissue. But you're going to start to feel that because the sensitivity to that position becomes heightened over time as the pressure increases. The same would go for anyone who's dealing with an injury. So return to sport may not be as, as complete as we would, is like. Sometimes there are changes that just happen in your body after an injury, like normal wear and tear. But I think knowing that, accepting that, and being prepared for that is super important. And I think finding a goal that you really resonate with, so an end event, like say I want to ride 100 miles on my bike. I'm going to do a century. I want to do a Grand Fonda. That's my goal. That's all I want to do. That means a lot to me. You'll go back to that if you experience it. Like if you have that mindset, you'll recover. You'll get to that point. Will it be easy? Probably not. Will it be 100% pain-free? Maybe not. I don't know. Hopefully. Right? It could not. But if it matters to you and you love that goal and you love that event, then your recovery will definitely be better as a result of it.
Yeah, and then to be speaking on there essentially is motivation, right?
Yeah.
So how hard do you want it? Like when something's taken away, sometimes that's when all of a sudden we become aware of how much it mattered to us, right?
Oh my gosh.
Because many times we're able to do it. We're not going to. I remember having hurt my back once upon a time. And something like sitting in a restaurant or sitting through a movie, I never appreciated that fully until I couldn't do it. And so, sometimes we find out what we really want to do and what is really important, and then that builds on motivation. Like it's not hard to get up and exercise and do the things that you need to when you know exactly why you want to, and it's a potential risk of losing it. My experience along these lines, and it's been advice with working with people over the years, is I hurt my back years ago, and have historically been active and was involved in athletics in my whole life and played football in college and do still bike race and do a variety of things. But there was a time when I hurt my back and literally could not, I couldn't sit or stand for any length of time, and all the stuff that I love to do, exercise-wise, would just blow it up. It would make it worse. And I remember being frustrated around that part. And for me, one of my big things was getting back into doing some bike racing again, and had a big event. We did one out in British Columbia, and I think where it was really beneficial is it gave me something to focus my energy on, and it gave me something to think about. Because what I found was, back when I was very acute, it was one of these things where you end up monitoring it and you kind of pay attention to it a lot. And if you do that enough, I found that I was paying attention to it all the time. And what the research shows with that is that makes things worse. It doesn't necessarily help it. So you end up being in your head too much, and that just sort of sensitizes your system. And having something to focus on makes you think about something else and channels your energy and gives you something to work towards that's worth fighting for and worth working towards.
Well, I think that's the key, and I was going to ask you that question. It's how motivating is spinal rehabilitation? And I think the answer, especially from a physical therapist's perspective, we kind of understand the steps that are necessary. But if you didn't have any knowledge about back rehab, you didn't know really what was going on, and I'm sitting here telling you to contract your TA and your core muscle, the tiny core musculature, which is a very sensitive and very specific progress, the motivation factor has been pretty low, I feel.
Yeah.
Right? And so I can ask you, when you're differentiating, I want to get back to a bike race, and then I want to recover, even as a physical therapist, I want to recover my back to full function. Which one got you more motivated?
Oh, no doubt about it.
Right.
It was like the things that I love to do, and then the other part about it is when I got back to those things, then I felt like I was really back. I felt like I was really rehabbed. It was like the capability of doing it again. So massively helpful. It wasn't an issue of getting up and doing what you got to do. You just do it.
Yeah. Well, I think that alludes what you just said alludes perfectly to the conclusion of PT at some point. Right? You can. Especially a physical therapist, I know our practice primarily wants to get people to not only recover from injury, but we want them to develop life habits and goals, and we want you to develop exercise, understanding that not only helps you return to full function, but then push beyond that and find even an improvement that you didn't know was capable of, a lifestyle that you're like, wow, I feel really good, even better than I did before the injury. But I think the problem that we continue to deal with is when you're going to physical therapy, we could push and push and push and push until you're, fit and healthy and active and all these things. But really the conclusion of what you want to get to is that lofty goal at the end. Once you've accomplished it, that's when I've made a recovery. And it shouldn't be dictated by, you've gotten 90 degrees of spinal flexion and you've gotten, you can now do 120 degrees of hip flexion. Like those numbers matter to us because that tells me that you've returned from an objective standpoint. But it shouldn't matter that much to you. It really should be the functional task at the end of the goal.
Yeah, I think it's hugely an emotional, like it taps into our emotions, right? And our emotions are what drives us and what motivates us. And picking those sorts of stretch tasks, that will make some of the changes that you need to do. And like I say, I think that it speaks at confidence, it speaks at motivation, it's all these things. And really, ultimately, what we want to do is enjoy our lives.
Right.
And we want to be physically capable because of doing the things we love to do, whatever that may be. Mm-hmm. So I think it makes much. I think it's a necessity.
Well, yeah. Yeah, so I think as a practice, right, it's something that we could think about doing a lot more. How do you think we can get that implicated in people's lives more often? Like I think as our responsibility as a healthcare professional to lead people to a successful recovery, how are we going to help people get to that part?
Well, I know for myself, I try to dig that out of people. I have conversations with it. I'll ask them, hey, what do you really love to do? What do you want to do? And then you listen to what that is, and then you encourage them to pick some sort of goal that maybe takes it that much further. knowing that in that process that they will need to get stronger, improve all the things that you need to change. So, excuse me, so that they feel better.
Yeah, I think there's even on our template for our evaluation, right, our assessment, there's always a what's your goal from physical therapy. And I'll tell people, a lot of people come in with a goal, I want to decrease my pain, I want to improve my range of motion, I want to be comfortable, whatever. And I think that's absolutely valid. But I think that's a small picture goal. I think I always try to pull people into the mindset of, okay, you want to be pain-free, but why? What's you want to be comfortable, but what's the big purpose of all that? Because everyone does want to be in pain. I understand that 100%. But is it you don't want to be painful when you sit for work, so you want to get through a stressful work day for 8 hours without pain, or is it I have pain when I jog? You want to end up running a half marathon? Is that why you don't want to have pain when you jog? Right? Yeah. And you get to that goal, and you can narrow down people's real initiatives and what they really want to accomplish. And I think that's when this becomes motivating. Because if I just want to be pain free, I got to say that the road can be complex and it can look kind of hazy because some days can be worse than others, and you're on this roller coaster if it's pain free. But if it's if it's I want to get toward this task of jogging pain free, without any issues, then it's more concrete. Now I can really see my changes, right? Because it's less basically the bigger the gap between your events, the more upward change you're going to see. Yeah. If you've got these tiny goals where we're only going to be able to, you could get it in a week or you could get it in 2 days or whatever it may be, you're going to see these huge fluctuations in how you feel, and that ends up making you emotionally a little bit perturbed.
Well, and there's variability in what we feel on a daily basis, pain-wise, just on how we sleep, what's going on in our
range
life.
Range of motion's the same way. You can be stiff one day and mobile the next, depending on how you sleep or what you did that night.
Yeah, it's a very abstract goal, right? It's not a concrete goal. So my favorite 3 questions are, what do you love to do? What do you want to be able to do, like ideally? What would really make you happy? And then what are you worried about?
Right.
What are you concerned about? What are you concerned about for the future?
That's right.
And then sort of why do you want it? If you get people to really dig down to what it is that they really just love to do and want to do and why, then that's easy to help them find the internal motivation to get it accomplished. And it's way more exciting to go after those goals.
Absolutely. Well, very cool. Yeah, I think so. I think that was a takeaway from what we're trying to get at today, and what we're kind of trying to pose to people is that whether you're dealing with an injury or you're dealing with an impairment, or something nagging, it could be anything from something nagging to something traumatic or acute. It doesn't matter really where it falls in that spectrum. If you're trying to recover from something like that, mentally, emotionally, physically, always set your sights on a lofty expectation goal that you're trying to get to. Preferably an event. Whatever it may be, something that really resonates with you. So find something that feels good, that you want to do again, and then sign up for it, book it, pay for it, commit to it. Right? And then you can really focus on the task at hand, and then everything you do, no matter every hamstring stretch and TA activation and physical therapy stuff that you've given, now has a purpose, a greater purpose than just getting me back to normal. It's getting me back to this thing that I love. And you'll find that the exercises are easy to do daily, that you'll have better success with it, and that you'll be a little bit more motivated to continue going forward.
And the way I like to explain that is you have to have like a destination. Yeah, if you want to go from here to there, well, you need to know 2 things. Is where do you really want to go? Where do you want to get? You have to be able to physically envision it and imagine it and think it's possible to be able to go after it. And then you have to kind of know where you're starting. And then it's easy to be adaptable and figure out ways to get that done and find the motivation to put the effort out and make a change. But there's lots of really good physiology and why all that matters. And you're more capable than you ever thought. And it sometimes takes some time and effort, but when you've got good concrete goals like that, then that's it pays off over time.
Absolutely. So. Awesome. Well, hey, we appreciate you listening in. If you feel free to leave some comments below in this post to let us know about any experiences you've had either working toward goals after having an injury, or if you have any examples of lofty goals that you think would be a great place for people to start if they're looking towards getting back into some of their normal routine or even shooting for the moon, that'd be great. Otherwise, this has been your Strive to Thrive podcast. Appreciate you guys for listening and look for some more content coming up the next coming weeks.
Thanks for listening, guys. Have a great day.
See you.